Hello, Reporter Room investigators. My name is Jessica Della Davies. I'm an investigative journalist. My job is to investigate crimes, crime scenes, and potential suspects, and share with you how to do the same thing. If you haven't subscribed to Reporter Room, please do. Come on in, come on in, come on in. Today we're going to be talking about the Sebastian Rogers case. I have some interesting new information for you. I'm going to be doing a live stream also right after this on the Micah Miller case. If you want to just watch this one and then follow me over to that one, we're going to go live on that. So today we're going to do some analysis of early Katie and Chris Proudfoot. We're going to be talking about Tony Mathis and a new statement that he has made. And we're also going to be going through this using statement analyst expertise from Peter Hyatt and Stephen Johnson. So one of the earliest interviews that Chris and Katie Proudfoot did was on a channel called Duchess. So I've linked her channel in the description below, along with statement analyst Peter Hyatt's channel. So because we're going to be referring to his work as well. So please sub up to both of them if you haven't already. I think they're both good content creators. So did you know that Katie and Seth got divorced on February 26th of 2016 and Sebastian disappeared on February 26th? So is this date significant? Or is this just a big coincidence? So a couple of things pop out on one of this early interviews. One is that Chris Proudfoot refers to Katie as the mom. There's a lot of distancing language on this, and we're going to go through all of that in just a second. But I do want to just remind everybody that Sebastian Rogers, this is Chloe's, the PI Chloe, this is her. He is missing. It's been over 100 days. This was posted yesterday. And this should pop up. It's trying to grab it. There it is. Okay, so let me move myself out of the way. So it's been 100. They're calling this a milestone, which seems a little bit odd, but you know. This is by Nick Barris. He's a journalist. He's a local journalist. He has good relations with law enforcement. So he's talking about come on in, you guys, and tell me where you're from. I'm sorry, I don't mean to. Sometimes I forget social media social. So, but Sebastian disappeared from his Henderson home more than 3 months ago on February 26th of this year. He said, in case so many of us, a case that so many of us still follow, make no mistake, this is not a cold case. The TBI, the FBI, and the Sumner County Sheriff all three are saying that the case remains active. But authorities say they're no closer to solving the mystery of what happened to Sebastian. And in recent weeks, the most recent tip turned out to be nothing. That was the teenager that I showed you guys. And the teenager was identified. It was confirmed that this was not Sebastian. And since then, it's been really, really quiet. Eric Craddock, chief deputy of the Sumner County Sheriff's Office, spoke to Nick Barris. He's heading up the investigation, and he says that that is pretty quiet. He said, unfortunately, the number of reported tips or sightings has decreased in recent weeks, but that he also makes it clear that no one is giving up. No one is giving up. But based on the investigation and the efforts to date, they do not have a body of work to review and say, in the absence of information, what we continue to do is go back over everything we've done and give it a new set of eyes. And that's what we're going to do today also. We're going to go back over everything and look at it with fresh eyes, because this is what we do in investigative journalists. A lot of people picture us like out, in the war zone. That's a different kind of journalist. Investigative journalist, a lot of what I do is research. It's going over and over information. In the Alex Murdaugh case, I went all the way back to the 1970s in my research to uncover what I believe was a money laundering scheme in that case. So Detective Craddock, agrees everybody's been frustrated over the new leads, which unfortunately result in some crazy conspiracy theories. All right, so that is I just wanted to remind you that Sebastian is missing, and that this is what this is all about. Tony, the spokesperson, also has a new statement, and we're going to go through that in just a second. But I do want to start out by just going through this interview. This is Duchess's channel. Let me just make sure I'm sharing what I'm looking at, and I'm not. I really like this channel. I wasn't aware of her. So who you see on the screen, you see Trev Time, not Trevor, not T-Rev, but this is Trev Time. Okay. Well, in the up with Dutch, she goes by Dutch. And then in the bottom is Chris Proudfoot, but also Katie Proudfoot is speaking here as well. Let me just check in with chat. Come on in, guys. Tell me where you're from. Let's dig into this together. And I did find a couple of things that I think are really, really interesting. Let me just tell you. And it's more than just the distancing language that really bothers me, although we are going to talk about that. It's also the lack of detail, where we have a lot of detail and where we don't have a lot of detail, because truthful statements usually contain specific details. So we're going to talk more about that in just a second, but let's go ahead and dig into this. But let me say hello. I do want to say hello to chat. I thank you so much for joining me today. I do want to thank all of you, and also let you know that we are doing a giveaway. Let me award 40,000 subscribers, and to celebrate, we are going to be doing a cash giveaway and also be giving away 10 channel memberships. And so this will happen on whichever video we click over from 39,999 subscribers to 40,000 subscribers. And Reporter Room will be giving away a cash prize of $100 and 10 channel memberships. And so we'll be going through the comments of subscribers on whichever video takes Reporter Room from the 39,999 to the 40,000 subscribers. And so if you want to learn more about that, I have it posted on the community tab, and it's also in the description of that video, which I put out the other day. Let me say hello to chat, and we're going to dig right into this, because I let you guys know I like to get going on stuff. So this is our head mod. This is NJazz. If you see, thank you to all our mods, all our channel members, and all of our subscribers. Hi, Leslie. Hey, Arlene. Hi, Jill. Hi, Jody. Good to see you guys. Come on in. Tell me where you're from. Hi, Christy. DM is here. Oh, we're going to have such a good live stream, you guys. We have really good people in the top chat today. So glad you guys are here. Autism GMA times 3. Thank you so much for joining us. Hey, Wicked. So, and Rhonda's here. Yeah, we have some really good people in the chat today. Hey, Cirrus. Good to see you. I'm happy to see you. So Andrea's here. She says, watching from Catskill, New York, we received an Amber Alert here back in March. Oh, that's awesome. That's so awesome. It's so nice to have New York represented in the house. The Catskills are absolutely gorgeous. I love to ski in the Catskills. Midwest is here. Janet is here. Larry says, I don't think there's any, I don't know. I mean, I think it's possible that he could have run away, but I know a lot of you guys feel like that, so I'm not going to discount anybody's feelings. If you feel a certain way about it, I'm going to just respect, where you guys are. We are going to be digging into the Micah Miller case right after this too, you guys. Oh my gosh, that case is absolutely crazy. If you don't know, I'm going to catch you up very quick in like 2 minutes. I'm going to catch you up, and then we're going to dig into it. Hey, Deb. Mama Bear's here. Midwest is here. Yeah, please hit the thumbs up button. Let YouTube know we're doing a G-rated show here. I'm so glad you're here. Larry's here all the way from Missouri, and DM is here all the way from Florida. Wow. Australia's in the house. Wow, Susie. Kentucky, Mississippi. Wow, you guys. We have people from all over the world, all over the country. Hi, Tosh. Kanka, True Crime, watching from Ontario, Canada. Wow. Canada's represented. And Christy says, if you ever need more admins, I'm willing. Oh, I would love that, Christy. I can't add you right this second, but I'm going to be doing a channels member. Oh, I forgot to say that too. I'm going to do a channels member after the Micah Miller. So if you want to join me for that, I will be doing a channel members live after Micah Miller. So we're going to do this one first, then we're doing Micah Miller, and then we're going to do a members only debrief. Jan Moore says, I'm amazed at the volume of YouTube channels the Proudfoots are engaging with. It's unusual. It is. It's unprecedented. Really, we haven't seen anything like this, Jan Moore. You're right, since the Summer Wells case, with parents engaging like this. And some of it's been helpful. Hey, welcome. Kentucky's in the house. Welcome, you guys. I'm so glad you guys are here with me today. Thank you so much for being an important part of the Reporter Room family. London and Australia, I just like people around the world care about this little boy, and I think it's so great. Hey, Idaho is here. Yeah, such a nice chat. We have a really nice, friendly group. All right, so let's go ahead and dig into this because I did find some things that I think you guys will be interested in. We're also going to be talking about we're going to go through this early interview, but I also want to talk to you guys about the timeline, and I want to talk to you guys about the lack of detail and a new update from Tony Mathis. Was Seth at the CrimeCon? And if he was, why wasn't he there? Or if he was, why was he there? Let's dig into this, though, together, guys. So this is Duchess, and I've linked her channel in the description below, and I hope you guys will sub up to her. I think she's got a great channel.
He did have a really good weekend, actually. When we come home from having supper that evening.
So this is Katie Proudfoot talking.
He was playing. When he went to bed, when I told him to go to bed, he said, I love you, Mama. And he said, I love you, puppies. A little later in the evening, I myself went to bed. And when I went to wake him up for school, he wasn't here.
And you did tell me that Sebastian is not a runner.
He's not.
It's okay. Take your time.
Sebastian does not have a history of running. I mean, the young man doesn't go outside very much.
So I like that he used the name Sebastian there, but I am really concerned. Chris refers to Sebastian as Katie's son. He refers to Katie as the mother, and he refers to Sebastian multiple times as the young man. So I think that's a red flag. We're going to look at Peter Hyatt's analysis on the Proudfoots in just a second, but let's start with this.
He wasn't here.
And you did tell me that Sebastian is not a runner.
He's not.
It's okay. Take your time.
Sebastian does not have a history of running. I mean, the young man doesn't go outside very much. I mean, everybody in the neighborhood knows him. He is very to himself, so to speak. Between the hours of 12 and 6, he is basically vanished.
So we have a different timeline here. Chris Proudfoot is giving us from 12 midnight until 6 in the morning. So he's tightened it up even more than, what we got from the information from law enforcement, which said between 9 p.m. and 6:38 a.m. Because Katie, that's when Chris Proudfoot called in sometime around there. We don't know because he called in on a three-way. But I think it's really interesting that we have a different timeline here. Now they're saying midnight until 6 a.m., which is a much tighter timeline than the 9 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. that we have. So this is a much tighter timeline, and I'm wondering if this is being done to benefit Chris Proudfoot. And let's listen into a little bit more. And I'm going to tell you why I believe that this was done to help Chris Proudfoot out, in my opinion. I'm not saying that these parents did anything to him, but I just think there's a lot of red flags. And Peter Hyatt, who's a professional statement analyst, and Steve Johnson, also a professional statement analyst, we're going to be using their research, so you don't have to just take my word for it.
Walked out of the house, the door was locked and gone.
And the other thing I think is interesting is Chris Proudfoot tells us that Sebastian does not like to be outside. So again, if he doesn't like to be outside, why would he go out without shoes on?
Didn't take a phone. None of his shoes are missing.
Now, you told me that night that, now, Chris, you were at work. You were out of town at work,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
you were not even home.
Correct, ma'am.
And Mom, you fell asleep on the couch about 10 o'clock, but you said that Sebastian went to bed at 9 p.m. And then you got up off the couch and you went to bed, and you said that was around midnight.
Midnight.
And nothing was unusual at that point. Everything seemed okay.
There's actually a piece.
I don't know why Katie's not being allowed to answer here because Chris was not there, but he's going to answer for Katie.
So to make something very crystal clear, so that way
Okay.
there's transparency across the board.
And when somebody does extra emphasis on crystal clear, something across the board, let's perk up, guys.
Me and the mom were on the phone.
Me and the mom. Not me and Katie. Not me and my wife. Me and the mom, you guys.
At 9:43 or 9:46 in the evening.
Okay, so now we have the timeline. We were told he was on the phone when he was on Nancy Grace from 9 p.m. until midnight with Katie, but we have a different timeline in this earlier interview, right? A little different timeline.
At that point, everything seemed okay.
There's actually a piece of, so to make something very crystal clear, so that way there's transparency across the board.
When you hear somebody put an emphasis on that, perk your ears up, guys. Put a pin in that little comment, because usually there's going to be a need to convince coming up.
Me and
right
the mom
behind
were
that.
on the phone.
Me
at
and the mom.
9:43 or 9:46 in the evening. We stayed on the phone for quite some time. The call logs have been verified by all the police departments, TBI included.
Why does he need to say the call logs have been verified by everybody? I just don't think that needs to be added in, but let me know what you think.
We stayed on the phone. It was very lengthy. Mom did slightly start falling asleep while she was on the couch. I had said, hey, you need to wake up, put the dogs up, go to bed. Now, mind you, that was right around midnight, just before midnight or right around midnight.
Mm-hmm.
So then Mom does go to bed and wakes up early in the morning to go wake her son up, get him ready for school.
So notice in this interview, Sebastian is the young man and Sebastian is Katie's son. He's not our son, like he's trying to say now in more recent interviews. In this early interview, Sebastian is clearly her son. And he doesn't even say her name. It's the mom and her son.
And now we have a worried mom who can't find her son in the house.
And this sounds like storytelling now. Now we have a worried mom who can't find her son in the house. Instead of saying, Katie was frantic, I was frantic, we couldn't find Sebastian, which would be like the normal way to say it. It's almost like he's telling us a story. Now we have a worried mom who can't find her son in the house. Again, it's her son at this point, not his son. And I think these are huge red flags, you guys. We're going to go to Peter Hyatt in just a second.
Mom made an effort to look and search several times. Mom has called me at the time and asked me, she was like, I can't find him. I was like, do what? And she goes, yeah, I cannot find him. I said, well, hang on. I made the phone call and reported it to the sheriff's department because that's what we're supposed to do.
He didn't report it because they were scared. He didn't report it. I believe him. They reported it because that's what we're supposed to do. That's what we're supposed to do. That's why they reported it. Not because they were scared of what was going on with Sebastian. At least this is my interpretation of Chris. Not because they were worried sick, because that's what they're supposed to do. Listen to one more time, guys, just on this last little tiny bit.
Time and asked me, she was like, I can't find him. I was like, do what? She goes, yeah, I cannot find him. I said, well, hang on. I made the phone call and reported it to the sheriff's department because that's what we're supposed to do. And within 10 minutes, the sheriffs were dispatched to the location.
Wow. So I made the call to the sheriff's office because that's what we're supposed to do. This is like huge red flags, you guys. And the fact that he keeps talking about me and mom were on the phone at 9:43. So that's a different timeline than what he gave Nancy Grace, right? 9 p.m. to midnight. That timeline. And then Katie added the thud at 10 p.m. But now we're finding out they were on the phone closer to 10 in the evening. So that's really different than what Chris Proudfoot said on Nancy Grace. So is this an effort by extending the amount of time that they were on the phone? Was this an effort to give a better timeline that benefits Chris, or was this on an honest mistake? And does anybody else think it's really weird that he keeps talking about Katie as the mom? I don't know. So let's listen up to the next little part, because you're going to hear Chris begin to alibi build. He wants to make sure that everybody knows that he's been verified by the TBI.
And you had told me that there hadn't been any particular situation that had occurred where you felt like there would have been something that happened. And I also had asked you if there were any friends that Sebastian might have possibly left the house with, or if he had any contact with anyone on social media. Do you want to comment about that again?
I just love her accent too. Duchess does such a great job with this interview.
He doesn't have a social media.
Okay.
And the only friends that he had were a couple of kids in school.
Okay.
All the kids that have had any interaction with him have been interviewed and asked.
Okay.
We as parents know how social media can be,
Right.
and seeing how kids can be easily manipulated.
He's very young in mind.
Yes, he may be.
Right.
He's about 15, and he's 15 in age in his body, but his mind is not caught up to his body. But that is something that goes through with autistic children, as everybody would know.
Right.
As everybody would know. I don't know. Would everybody just know that? I don't know.
But for the record, I am a very strict parent. He does not have social media.
I believe Chris Proudfoot when he tells us he's a very strict parent. I believe that.
Not in our household. He doesn't online game. I'm pretty strict when it comes to that kind of situation.
So I'm really concerned about Sebastian. It doesn't sound like he really had anybody that he could turn to. We're going to talk about Tony Mathis and a new statement from him in just a second. But I want to continue on with this, but I also want to go through the Peter Hyatt. So let me just grab that really quick too, so I have that queued up. I thought I had it queued up, but I don't. Obviously, I clicked through, but this is really interesting. It's really interesting. Okay, I do have it queued up. I just don't have it on my thing. Okay, here it is. Okay, can you guys see this okay? You should be able to see. Are you guys able to hear everything okay? Let me know if you need the volume pop boosted a little bit or if it's okay. Thank you too. All right, so let's talk about Peter Hyatt, and then we're going to go back to the interview because I see some more red flags, but I want to just, you don't have to take my word for it. Let's go to a professional person who, this is a statement analyst. He trains law enforcement. He trains, he works on very big cases. He did a big interview. He's pretty famous for the Richard Hall D. Hall series that he did on the Madeline McCann case. That's how I found him. And I think he's really good.
Then there were the subsequent interviews that revealed the home life of the missing child. Now, in a child protective investigation, everything has to be known. Collateral interviews are so important. They can tell us the environment that shaped the victim, the missing child. And the stepfather began with his wonderful relationship with bio dad. And he quickly moved into the language of belligerency, the language of physicality.
So let's listen to that for a second, guys. Let's go to that and go through that together. So we've got him talking about how strict of a parent he is, right? He's talking about how strict of a parent he is.
Well, that's good. That's good, Chris, that you have your property.
I think he understands the process. He doesn't have any sense of money. He may have, like, let's say, a $20 bill in his hand, but he doesn't truly understand what 20.
Kim Holmes asked if there's any cameras in the area, and I did see, Kim, that they were asking for people that had any Ring doorbell footage or any businesses that had camera footage. Talk to us about that, Chris. We did speak about that briefly earlier about. I did ask you guys.
They're not.
I know that you said there was some misinformation that was going around and you wanted to make a clarification. You did tell me that TBI, was assisting, but that there was some confusion. People thought that FBI was actually assisting in this case. Talk to me about what you spoke about earlier to me on our phone call about how FBI is, that they were consulted, and the card team, I guess there is a discussion going on as to whether he qualifies, as, for the child abduction response team.
So the FBI is not physically on the ground. Somewhere in one of the news clips, I think it was reported that the FBI had made it on the ground. They're not. TBI, Tennessee Bureau of Investigations, has reached out to the behavioral analysis team or their CART team, and they are trying to work with them from a distance. They're not physically present, to help in any way, form, shape that they can render their assistance.
Okay. Light and
So I'm just going to fast forward over this a little bit.
That stuff that could be accessible. They've brought in teams from all over the state that specialize in either cave explorations, water recovery rescues. We don't know that they have drained a pond. I can say that much, but they have searched, they've dived them all for sure.
Well, we know now that they have drained the pond.
They've walked. I couldn't tell you how many on Sunday.
Okay. And when
it comes to
restaurant or?
No, they are all wholesale, like a commissary style stores where they sell in bulk.
Oh, okay. Okay. So Costco
So
Saturday, BJ's on Sunday.
Yes,
He
ma'am.
loves to eat all the samples, and BJ's is new, so I took him.
You're a good mom.
And when it comes to, like, the one mentioned about Minecraft, like I stated before, he does not have any way to come with anybody on any form of online gaming. That is extremely restrictive. We don't allow that because of what can come of it.
They combed all of the electronics.
I can tell you this with no hesitation. Anything and everything we have given to the police and any other law enforcement to have them completely scan, validate everything, and they are currently I mean, everything is empty. I mean, they were like, you guys are pretty good at. I said, yes, sir. We don't believe in allowing the kids to communicate through
So Chris really does need to prop himself up here. He needs to be sure to tell us what good parents they are. You guys are
social
pretty
media
good.
or through any type of gaming.
So he's bragging about what a good father he is. Well, he's referring to Sebastian as her son, and the young man, not his name, not his son, like he does in later interviews. So I think they've been watching and learning. They've been watching.
Looks like Missing in USA says, why are they wanting camera footage from Sunday afternoon? Because
that we cannot release right now.
Okay,
That is not
I
something that
understand.
has been authorized us to
Right.
put out to the public.
And we respect that 100%. Ginger Snap says, I was reading that his favorite area.
Cleared, there is no wrongdoing.
While you're here tonight, or make clear to the public about this situation. I know you told me there was a statement that you wanted me to make about you and the mom and the dad. So if you want to make any clarification about that, you have free reign to do so. We will not allow you to be disrespected here on this platform.
I have no malice or ill intent toward anybody. Everybody has an opinion.
Of course.
But what is factual is that the father, the mother, and myself have been extremely cooperative. We have been vetted. We have been checked out. We have been questioned and everything of that nature, and literally have been cleared. There is no wrongdoing. There is.
So we know that that's not true. Now we know that no one has been cleared. Law enforcement has been very clear about that. They haven't been able to clear anybody, not because necessarily anybody did anything wrong, but because they don't know what happened to Sebastian. So he's really telling us, a lot of stuff. Let's listen to Peter Hyatt on this.
Even his references used physical references, and he became combative. And then he went to, and I haven't seen the most recent ones. I haven't seen it pretty much since the beginning, but he then went to a false sense of machismo, inviting challenges. Does he say that this guy is lacking in masculinity? Otherwise, he wouldn't be putting up this wild front there. And what I sadly concluded, and I don't know if this is true, but it is my opinion, that I think one of the most difficult things that Sebastian faced under this man's domain wasn't the boasting and bragging of the discipline, while he's still missing, of course. I think he probably was ridiculed in his masculinity.
And to be clear, Peter Hyatt is talking about Chris Proudfoot here.
By stepfather, because this is he revealed who he is. So abusive, and someone that has the ability to go through a number of marriages and give marital advice out. Someone who's giving advice on how to discipline a child while a child is missing.
All right, so keeping that in mind, let's go back to the interview. So Peter Hyatt's a statement analyst. He's an expert on this. He teaches and trains law enforcement.
There's no negative input from the parents,
But we have Chris
everybody has
Proudfoot
an opinion.
proclaiming that they've all been cleared here, which we know now is not true.
Of course.
But what is factual is that the father, the mother, and myself have been extremely cooperative. We have been vetted. We have been checked out. We have been questioned and everything of that nature, and literally have been cleared. There is no wrongdoing. There is no negative input from the parents or any of the family.
And we know now that no one has been cleared. I'm not saying anybody did anything to anybody. I'm just saying that's not true. No one has been cleared. If you're just joining me, please sub up to Duchess, I linked her in the channel in the description below, and Peter Hyatt, statement analyst. I've linked both of their channels, and we are talking about the Sebastian Rogers case. We're looking at one of the early interviews, because that's what we do. That's what journalism, people don't like, investigative journalists. A lot of what I do is going back and researching and going back through. So we're hearing what I consider to be some storytelling, um, on how well they co-parent with Seth and how well they all get along. Now we know now that that's complete nonsense, and I'm just wondering if at this point in the process, this interview was done several months ago, if Chris and Katie were trying to ingratiate themselves to Seth Rogers. And it just makes me wonder about that message that Seth claims he got from Chris Proudfoot that told him not to be upset, but Sebastian was missing. Don't be upset. Don't be mad. But Sebastian is missing. And hearing Chris referring to Seth as the father, and again, not as Seth, not as Sebastian's father. Again, this is a lot of distancing language, in my opinion. What do you think? Are you watching closely? So we did learn a couple of helpful things. Katie says that law enforcement found no evidence of a secret phone. And Duchess also asked them about them being cooperative. This is where we hear Chris referring to Seth as the father and claims that they've been cleared of any wrongdoing. Well, we know that's not true. Now we're going to listen in while Chris Proudfoot says we wouldn't wish this on anyone. Now we heard Katie saying this, and we can hear Katie in the background saying this. We wouldn't wish this on anyone. Listen to this, you guys.
And it's hard for a lot of folks. I mean, I will be honest and say this out loud. I have a custody case that is currently going on in another state, which has been brought to public light because people feel that they want to judge and think that they understand what's currently going on, and they don't.
Again, a lot of concern about his own reputation here. Remember, this Duchess asked him if there's anything they wanted to say, any kind of statement they wanted to make. Here was their chance to say something to Sebastian, right? He's just been gone not that long, right? This was a few months ago. He's not been gone that long. Here was their chance to make a plea to Sebastian, and instead, it's all about reputation. Let's continue on together, and then we're going to go back to Peter Hyatt.
Because of that, I am being looked at in a very foul way. I don't need to repeat anything that's being said, but
Right.
and it's perfectly
There's
okay.
people that's probably seen it on social media, and I want you to be able to have the opportunity to defend yourself. We have 248 people watching right now, and I'm sure that anyone that's watching this on the live stream, please respect this family. I mean, you can't have an idea of possibly what they are going through, and it's really not any of your business what is going on. And I understand that you do see your other child, which, and that doesn't have anything to do with Sebastian. And you guys are on good terms with his father. There's not like there's any custody battle between the mother and Sebastian's father. I mean, obviously, if he wants to see his father, you guys told me that, you just plan to meet up, and it's no big deal. So, I
know this is how they characterized it to her, but we know now from watching them. Of course, when she made this interview, she would have no way to know what the future was going to bring. But we know now from watching all the interactions between Seth Rogers and Katie and Chris Proudfoot, this was not all kumbaya, everybody sitting around holding hands and singing kumbaya together, that there was a lot of animosity. And I'm just wondering, and people are like, why talk about the parents? Because if he ran away, if he walked out of that house, or if he was told to get out of the house, there was a reason he did he feel like he had anybody? If he didn't have friends at school, and his teacher that tried to help him by calling CPS on Chris Proudfoot, and then if CPS did tell him that if he would make a false report, and Katie didn't back Sebastian up on the report, And instead, Sebastian got in trouble. Did Sebastian feel like he had anybody? And would this be a reason that he would have walked out of the house either on his own or with some assistance? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. We're going to go back to Peter Hyatt on this. So let me just click back there.
And I think back to the incontinence of the child, of the victim, and the false bravado of the stepfather who was in charge of discipline and bragged about his discipline. And, you know, since then I've heard, I haven't seen him, but I've heard he's gone on to all sorts of bizarre things in interviews and that sort of thing. I think my opinion is stepfather was insisting, put him out, put him out.
And I agree with this assessment. I told you guys, I made this video. It's called The Choice. And I feel like Katie was being made to make a choice similarly to what Chris Proudfoot was doing to Nina Gomez when she wanted to continue her pregnancy with Faith. He withheld emotional support. He withheld financial support. He withheld any type of support. And she had to go live with her parents to be able to continue. And we know from Chris and Katie Proudfoot's own words that Chris was not at home. So was there a choice being made here? And did Katie put him out? Let's listen to Peter Hyatt, because this is not my assessment. This is a professional statement analyst.
You know, since then I've heard, I haven't seen him, but I've heard he's gone on to all sorts of bizarre things in interviews and that sort of thing. I think my opinion his stepfather was insisting, put him out, put him out, or I'm gone. Because he's moved on a lot in relationships, and that's probably something within him that is going to follow him for a while longer.
Remember, Katie's his fifth wife, so he's definitely sees relationships, in my opinion, as disposable, that he just moves on. So Katie would have known this, and we hear her using the language of we, but let's listen to Peter for another couple of minutes, and we're going to go back to Chris Proudfoot.
He's had a number of marriages, and he's only about 40 or so. So it's something terribly wrong there. I think this is what it was meant to be like for him, where this child was in the way, and Sebastian was an easy scapegoat. I don't think Sebastian had an easy life. The stepfather, in his language, his combativeness, he infuriated people. He infuriated them. He also scared people, and not scared of him, but scared for what Sebastian must have been going through when he was there, when stepfather was in the home.
And we've all heard the recordings now, the recording of Chris Proudfoot, how he talked to PI Heather on the phone when he didn't think anybody could hear him. We hear how he really is. And that was on the phone with another adult. How was he in private with Sebastian? Let's go back to this interview again, because I do think this is to be able to just go back and look at everything and then consider what professionals, statement analysts are saying is really helpful in this case.
I've read a couple of heinous things that people are saying, and it just really upsets me to know that people are just going to that without having all of the information and knowing that law enforcement has interviewed, interrogated everyone in your family. They have looked into you. They have all of your devices, and that they basically cleared you guys.
And they've not told her the truth. They have not told her the truth, and I just want to make it clear for Duchess, she's doing an awesome interview. She would never have known all of the animosity that we were going to find out about between them, the Proudfoots and Seth Rogers. She would not have known that they weren't cleared at this point in time.
Of any involvement in Sebastian's disappearance. And I just wanted the public to be able to hear you say that. because you do have the right to defend yourself. Because it's not like you said earlier, it's not about you, it's about finding Sebastian.
Correct.
Yes.
And I just don't want to have people to be dragging you around on social media. Isn't it already difficult enough that your child is missing?
That's beyond words. This is a feeling that I'm gonna tell you right now. I don't
wouldn't
care.
wish this on
Nobody should ever have to endure. It is not something that should ever be wished upon for anyone.
So we heard Katie say that. Did you hear her in the background? And Chris say, and this is something that Steve Johnson brought up. He said that the fact that they wouldn't wish this on anyone was really Katie feeling sorry for herself, not empathy for Sebastian. I haven't heard any empathy for Sebastian from these two. And I just really do feel like Peter Hyatt hit it on the head when he said he felt like Sebastian was being scapegoated.
To that without having all of the information and knowing that law enforcement has interviewed, interrogated everyone in your family. They have looked on my channel involving her child in the school system here on my platform. So Miranda you do have the right to defend yourself, because it's not like you said earlier, it's not about you, it's about finding Sebastian.
Correct.
Yes.
And I just don't want to have people to be dragging you around on social media. Isn't it already difficult enough that your child is missing?
That's beyond words. This is a feeling that I'm gonna tell you
Why is it beyond words too? Couldn't you put words to it? I don't know.
right now. I don't
wouldn't
care.
wish this on
Nobody should ever have to endure. It is not something that should ever be wished upon for anyone.
So it's all about them. Nobody should have to endure. We wouldn't wish this on anybody. It's all about them. Let's go back to Peter Hyatt.
And for a biological father, that would give me nightmares. Regarding the polygraph, I just wanted to say this. I can't judge a polygraph unless I know specifically what questions were asked. You know, if mother was asked, did you kill your son? And she could say no, she can pass the polygraph. It's something that should first have a gathering of information, including listening to their language, and then to pose questions. And I know that stepfather's responses were cagey to whether he took a polygraph, whether he passed it, that sort of thing. He has a need for that. He has a need to make things cloudy, self-protection, and then talk about his other case, or cases, plural.
All right, so we're going to dig more into this self-protection in just a second, you guys. But let me just check in with chat, because I do want to make sure that, oh, that's my alarm to tell you guys that I'm going to be doing the Micah Miller case right after this today. So once we're done with Sebastian Rogers, I'm going to, and we're not done now, but I just want to say once we are done, I will finish up here, and then I will reopen the next one on Micah Miller. So if you guys want to follow that, I'm going to give a very quick overview for those of you that don't know who she is and why this is important. And we're going to talk about the Micah Miller case in terms of you guys. So let me just check in with chat. I do want to just see if you guys have any questions or comments here on what you guys are hearing. So I just want to make it clear that the reason I wanted to do this and do this with using Peter Hyatt is that I didn't want you just to look at my analysis of this. I wanted to have somebody that this is their professional opinion on some of these statements that are being made. And I think that I'm not saying they did anything to Sebastian, but I do agree with Peter's assessment that Katie did make, possibly, in my opinion, allegedly, don't come for me, did make a choice on this. So Terry says, I agree. There is no we, it's himself. She feels like, Terry feels like he's selfish, hateful, and a bully. Yeah, please consider subscribing. Darren says there was a 3-hour call. Let's hear it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's a recording of it, but the 3-hour call really isn't a 3-hour call anymore, is it? Now it's according to this interview, it didn't start till 9:40 something. So closer to 10 o'clock. So it's closer to a 10-minute, 2-hour and 20-minute call than a 3-hour call. So that narrows up. And I'm wondering if that's why Katie had to add the thud, and why they had to expand that phone call is to give Chris Proudfoot an alibi here. I don't know. Let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Revival says, and equally so we have heard how Seth spoke to his son. Yes, we have. And we're going to talk about Tony in Mathis in just a second, and his latest statement in just a second. Chrissy says, yep, he may have, yeah, Sebastian on a daily basis. It breaks my heart for him. Yeah, it does. Me too, Chrissy. I feel like Sebastian, I do feel like he was the scapegoat in this house. I feel like Peter Hyatt is correct in his assessment that Sebastian was being scapegoated, and that he didn't have anybody to turn to. When he tried to turn to a teacher and CPS came out, I don't think Katie backed up Sebastian. If what Chris Proudfoot's telling us is the truth, I don't know, because we've seen Chris Proudfoot telling us some things that are obviously not true. They don't all get along well with Seth Rogers. That's just not true. So I don't believe it was all kumbaya and hand holding before Sebastian went missing. I believe there was, the same animosity that you see in a lot of families. And also he's telling us in this interview that he's cleared, Katie's cleared, everybody's cleared in his family. We know that's also not true. And we also know that there was drama where his family helped to try to take, according to Nina Gomez, Faith away from Nina when she had custody of Faith. So we know that stuff has gone on with this family, Chris Proudfoot's family, in the past. So this is why looking at the parents is important. I've had people say, why are you looking at the parents? This isn't going to help find Sebastian. I disagree. I think the dynamics of what was going on in the Proudfoot household and the dynamics between Sebastian and Seth were crucial. They are critical pieces of information that led up to what happened to Sebastian. Whether you think this was an accident, whether you think this was intentional, whether you think that Sebastian ran away, this is all important information. Yeah, facts. I'm Jessica. My name is Jessica. Kimmy says they've done something and nobody's going to do anything about it. Well, we don't know that. Leslie says, I believe they know what happened and where Sebastian is. Hey, Pamela. Tia says, none. They are just dark. It's gross. Julie Lane agrees with Leslie. Lynette agrees with Mike. Chrissy says, Katie Proudfoot and Chris Proudfoot are so brazen in their lack of concern for Sebastian. Mary Jury says, me either. Sam says, it will come. Law enforcement won't put any charges down until they have a lot of solid evidence, because if they go too soon and it fails, they can't do it again, but it will come. I agree. I think that we are going to find, I think they need to find out what happened to Sebastian. I would love to see the body cam footage from when they first interviewed Chris and Katie Proudfoot at the Proudfoot house. Also, I'd love to see that, to see how that lines up with what they've gone on to tell us in this. So please give this a thumbs up. Kimmy says, please put some pressure on these two. Brother Mike agrees. And Jazz says she hopes so. Arlene says, I'm waiting for the day that they are arrested. Well, I think they need Sebastian. That's what I think. And we had to wait. If you guys, remember the Scott Peterson case, Scott Peterson and Lacey Peterson, we had to wait till they found Lacey and Connor. Lynette says, maybe his words will be, oh, please help us find him. Please bring him on lots of things that could be said that Chris Proudfoot is not capable of love. And Jazz agrees with Arlene's assessment. Jane, again, he takes no responsibility. Karen says, knowing and proving are two different things. Sebastian needs to be found. I agree. I agree with Karen on this. Revival says, Seth acts the same way. I wish Peter Hyatt would review Seth also. Well, maybe he will. Darren says, I don't get how TBI and law enforcement are doing nothing. I don't think they are doing nothing. I don't think that they are. I think there is stuff going on behind the scenes. We saw this in the Brian Kohlberger case too, in the Idaho 4 case, where we didn't think anything was going on. We didn't, as people were questioning, not my channel, but there was a journalist questioning if the Idaho's police knew what they were doing. Did the Moscow police, were they up for this? And boom, they arrested somebody. So sometimes it can take a little bit, you guys. Sam R says Chris is a heartless narcissist. You can see he is a spoiled brat with the look on his face. So this is just our opinions, you guys, and opinions are not facts. Kimmy says, get them separate. Katie would crack if Chris wasn't there babysitting. Deb says, but Seth is not suspicious for doing anything to Sebastian. The Proudfoots are. I know there's a whole thing of the Proudfoots versus Seth. I know like people want to, but I just really do want to focus on this today. And I'm going to talk about Tony Mathis and Seth Proudfoot in just a few minutes. So please stay with me, but let's go ahead and finish this up. Cause there still is some more stuff that I want to dig into, on this. So I want to talk about the lack of detail, and then we're going to go back, to this again. Because I feel like with the lack of details, truthful statements usually contain specific details, some of which may not even be relevant to the questions asked. And this happens because truthful subjects are retrieving information, they're retrieving events from their long-term memory, and our memories store dozens of facts about each experience. What shoes were we wearing? What song was playing in the background? The woman at the next table who reminded us of our third grade teacher. All of these details will show up in a truthful subject's statement, but we don't hear any details about what happened during this phone call between Chris and Katie Proudfoot. It's been characterized as a 3-hour phone call. Now we know that it's 9 hours and 48 minutes, 9 hours and 38 minutes. So actually a much shorter phone call than what we were told. It's a little over 2 hours and 20 minutes to 12 a.m., if that can even be believed now. We don't hear any mention in this interview from Katie about the 10 p.m. thud. So was this added later to tighten up the timeline, or was the thud added later to account for something that maybe could have happened to Sebastian? But those who fabricate a story tend to keep their statements simple and brief. And we see that here when we're talking about what happened that night. Katie tells us lots of information about what they did that day, right? But from when they got home from the Texas Roadhouse Grill till she went to bed at midnight, we have very scant details on what was going on during a big gap of time. 6 hours, right? From 6 p.m. to midnight. Or if you want to go till the next morning, till 6:30 a.m., right? We have very scant details on this 12 and a half hours. So those who fabricate a story, and this is, just my opinion, but they tend to keep their statements simple and brief, and few liars have sufficient imagination to make up detailed descriptions of fictitious events. Plus, a deceptive person wants to minimize the chance that an investigator or law enforcement like the TBI, the FBI, will be able to catch them out in a lie. So I'm wondering why we don't hear anything from Katie and Chris Proudfoot, but especially Katie Proudfoot. She barely talks at all. But why don't we hear anything about what Sebastian and Katie were doing that evening, other than Sebastian took out the trash and she tucked him into bed and he told her, I love you, but she didn't say it back to him apparently. And she heard a thud, but that, very scant details compared to the details that we have of that day, of all the things that they did, the colossal popcorn, all the going to BJ's, all the stuff that they did that day, lots of detail, but on those crucial hours leading up to when he disappeared, very minimal details. So I'm wondering if the reason that we don't hear what Katie did that evening, or any information about what Sebastian and Katie were doing that evening, hardly, except for she put him to bed. And again, I ask you, does a 15-year-old need to be put to bed? Is it because, they're scared that they're going to contradict themselves? Even in what we've learned so far, we have seen major contradictions. So let's talk about the timeline change. that I shared with you on the significance of the February 26th date. Was this day selected by someone? Because February 26th, which is the date Sebastian disappeared, also happens to be the date on the when Katie and Seth were getting divorced, right? So we were told this timeline on the phone of 3 hours. Of course, now we're seeing that that's not true. We're being told here in this interview that he was cleared, that Chris Proudfoot's claiming they were all cleared by law enforcement. We, of course, know that's not true. And the other thing that's bizarre is Katie is, is in their narrative. She's sitting on the couch, and maybe she really was sitting there. And she was talking to Chris on the point where she was falling asleep. So was she having drinks? Had she dozed off? But it seems like, she could have. Did they have Katie placed on the couch? And then Chris has to tell Katie to go to bed at 12 p.m. Is this so that it gives them that tightens up that timeline to 12 p.m. and 6:30 a.m., a nice tight timeline that provides a good alibi for Chris Proudfoot that he needs, because we know he was at work at 5:15 a.m. from PI Chloe. So was this timeline created or tightened up to ensure that he did have an alibi? And this could just be him wanting to have, because he was trying to get custody of Faith. It could just be something like that. But it could be something more nefarious also. So a lot of people are concerned that we haven't seen any video, no proof of life from once they left the Texas Roadhouse on February 25th into February 26th. And just the significance of the date of February 26th is really, really bizarre. And I'm going to share with you some information on Tony Mathis in just a second. But let's listen to Peter Hyde on this, because I do feel like, this is what Peter does for a living. I do feel like there is a lot of good information. And he's made a couple of other videos too. And so I would urge you guys to sub up to Duchess. Also, I think she did a great job on stuff that she was told. She didn't have a way to call it out on the interview because it wasn't known yet. Okay. So I just want to.
So in terms of understanding of the investigation, it doesn't look good in terms of the work that's been done. It's concerning in that manner. Let me take this off the screen so I can look at your questions there. It's concerning. Now, if my theory is correct, and I think it is, but I'm always open to learn more, either sadly Sebastian will be found by casual hiker somewhere, or some exploring some cave or in water or something, or he met foul play by another party in a vehicle somewhere.
And before you poo-poo this and say that Peter Hyde couldn't be right, just remember what Nina Gomez told us about her interactions with Chris Proudfoot and how they tried to get Faith away from her. Remember that story. Remember that. Because I do think that that's really important. I do think it's worth considering when we're talking about foul play. I'm not saying that's what happened, because we don't know, but I don't think we can rule it out either.
I don't know. I don't answer that. But I do know that mother wasn't truthful, wasn't candid. And stepfather had a tremendous need to take over and control what? Control information. Control information. So if you have any questions about that, I'll glad to take them.
So I think that, I think that that's something that we've seen over and over and over from Chris Proudfoot, is just this need to control the information, this need to take over from when the very first thing where Katie calls him after she searches in the house frantically for Sebastian in 1 minute flat, right? She searches for 1 minute flat and she's hysterical. These are her words, not mine. She's hysterical after 1 minute flat with a 15-year-old that could have gone out to the car. He could have gone out to the yard. There's, lots of reasons of what he could have been doing. So why is she hysterical in 1 minute flat if something did not happen the night before? And Steve Johnson went a step further than Peter Hyatt when he was analyzing the interview with Katie and Chris. Not this one that we're doing today, but the one that I went through on my last live stream, that he went one step further and said that he felt like the thud and the I love you, that something happened in and around that 9 p.m., 10 p.m. time frame. He felt like, from his expert opinion, that something occurred around that 9 to 10 p.m. time frame. So I think that's very interesting also. Let me go back to this for a second.
Now, I do see Miranda. Miranda has a child. Can you hear me?
And who's sitting up here? This is Trev time. This is Trevor Lee. He's the one that did the interview, had the interview with Nina Gomez. So he's sitting up here on this panel.
And says something about exit 5. Are you guys close to exit 5? In here, Chris always treated my girls and son with nothing but kindness when all night. And please come back again. Okay, let's get back over here to the chat.
All right, so I'm going to just leave it up here with Sebastian's name, because we're going to go through. I just want to remind everybody that this is who we're looking for. We're looking for Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers. He's 15 years old. His brown hair, kind of blondish brown hair. I would say like maybe sandy brown hair, dirty blonde, somewhere in there. Brown eyes, 5'5", weighs 120 pounds. He disappeared from inside his own home on February 26th. He was last seen near it says here, the Beach High School on Stafford Court. I think she's just giving a general area, but he was last seen inside his own house. He was wearing a black, it says sweatshirt here, but we know now it was just a black shirt, black pants with like an Adidas style stripe down it, and no shoes, no cell phone, and that he is autistic. So I want to jump into, let me open this up. Can you guys see this? Okay, so this has been shared on Twitter by Ms. Harmony, and she's got
is not there at all. Let me tell you
some new information from Tony Mathis regarding Seth Rogers. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. Let me just check in with chat really quick, and then we're going to go into I know there's been a lot of talk that, Seth Rogers was at CrimeCon. Apparently he was not there, but we're going to talk about that in just a second. Let me just check in with chat. And I also I'm not ending, but I do want to just say thank you to our producers, George Brown and Jazz Angry Mons, Not So Saintly, Debbie Joe, and Jane J, and to our channel members. If you would like to be a channel member, all you need to do is hit the join button, and your name will appear on all of my videos and in all the live streams, and you get a check mark next to your name for each and every one. We're not done. I'm just wanted to thank everybody, because without the channel members and their support, I would not be able to afford to cover this case, because nearly every video I've done on this case has been demonetized. So I just wanted to say thank you so much. And I also wanted to do a super sticker PayPal gratitude thank you as well. I really appreciate you guys so very much. And gifted channel memberships. Thank you so much, you guys. Okay, so we're going to talk about Tony and his latest stuff in just a second. And we're going to go into the Micah Miller case once we're done with this, but we have some more stuff to talk about. Okay, so I did find it really disturbing that Chris Proudfoot's describing Sebastian as the young man and that Katie is the mom. And I just wonder if this is left over from when if they constructed a story about what happened that day, if what we're being told is a story. And many people have wondered why it took Chris and Katie 8 days to get out in front of the cameras and advocate for Sebastian, if you can even call it that. Because were they getting their stories straight? Were they studying other cases and trying to learn about behavior analysis? We've heard Chris Proudfoot talk about the Summer Wells case when he was on Queen Bee's panel. He mentioned the case multiple times in the conversation that he was having with Queen Bee. And hearing Chris Proudfoot in this interview with Duchess early on, and describing Sebastian as the young man, and then comparing and contrasting this to later interviews where he describes Sebastian now as his son, tells me that Chris Proudfoot is aware of the body language and aware of the statement analysis that's being done on him. He's adjusting his storytelling narrative, in my opinion, to come across as a more devoted stepfather than I think he actually was. Again, this is my opinion, and opinions are not facts. Everything I'm sharing is my opinion. The other thing that's jumping out to a lot of you guys is that Chris refers to Sebastian as Katie's son or as her son, but at this point, it's not our son. Now, in more recent interviews, he changes up his verbiage and he refers to Sebastian as his son. But again, this seems like an adjustment that Chris Proudfoot made in reaction to probably seeing the statement analysis going on of his early interviews. So although they claim they don't watch social media stuff on this case, I think the fact that he's fake calling into shows, showing up in people's live streams without an invitation, appearing in the comment section on multiple YouTubers, posing as Billy Bob Thornton to call in. He called into Emma's show. He called into Trisha's show. To me, it tells me that they're very interested, both he and Katie, in watching their coverage on this case. In fact, it seems like Chris and Katie, in my opinion, are spending more time watching the coverage of this case here on YouTube than they are in actually searching for Sebastian, because I have yet to see anything that tells me that they are looking for him. I'm not saying they haven't contributed to a billboard. They have. I just want to be fair. I don't know how much. Was it $100? Was it $1,000? I haven't seen them put up a reward for him. And these are people that live in in over a $500,000 house, and they didn't put up a reward for Sebastian. I just find it interesting and kind of sad. So let's talk about how Katie talks about Sebastian for a second. And then I want to dig into the real reason that I think Chris Proudfoot's trying to take control of the narrative. The thing that I noticed is that Katie refers to Sebastian as being very young in mind in this interview, and apparently so young in mind that he couldn't have access to social media, right? But yet she describes him as high functioning autistic. And we also have Chris jumping in to interrupt Katie, even though he hasn't been in the house during the entire month of February. And this is, this Sebastian disappeared on February 26th. He talks about how strict he is and that Sebastian couldn't have had access to social media. How does he know? Because I feel like there's a need on Chris Proudfoot's behalf to convince here. So let's consider the real reason Chris Proudfoot may be trying to take control of these interviews. It could be he's trying to just help out Katie, but it could also be that he has pre-planned out some storytelling, and he's very anxious to ensure that the correct version is put out for our benefit. So he interrupts Katie to interject information about what happened, even though he claims he wasn't at the house. Says he wasn't there for the month of February. This happened on the 26th. So I think February ended on the 29th. I think it was a leap year. So we hear Duchess asking Chris Proudfoot, do you know what happened to Sebastian? Why would he leave the house? And Chris Proudfoot talks about that $1 million question again in this interview. And Peter Hyatt and Steve Johnson both pointed out the $1 million question is not why did Sebastian leave or what caused Sebastian to leave. It's where is Sebastian? And I'm sure they'll adjust their verbiage going forward, but you can't take back what was said. And Chris Proudfoot in this, in this kind of interesting interview, we don't hear in this interview where Katie says that she told Sebastian, "I love you," ever. And we haven't heard it in any subsequent interviews. We hear that Sebastian told Katie, "I love you." We never hear Katie saying she told Sebastian that she loved him. So did he feel like he was loved? And why can't Katie tell her son that she loves him? That would have made her look like a good mother, in my opinion. So Another red flag, please stay with me on this, and we're going to dig into Tony Mathis in just a second, was that Chris Proudfoot says that the most odd thing that he says, and says to this boy, again, he refers to Sebastian as this boy, not Sebastian, not my son. But he says that he has a very large family, and everybody's asking the question, where are you? But why can't Chris Proudfoot just say, we want you to come home, or even better, I want you to come home? He never says that. And are you watching closely? So another big red flag, in my opinion, is the lack of detail that I just shared with you. The fact that Chris Proudfoot has to interject himself into every single thing that's being said. We have so much detail about what Katie and Chris did, their best day ever, the colossal popcorn, the salmon dinner. We hardly have any details from that 6 p.m. time, the last proof of life from the Texas Roadhouse Grill, until Katie wakes up and looks for him for a minute flat before panicking. And then Chris Proudfoot has to call the sheriff's office because apparently Katie, and again, the way he characterizes the reason that they called, because this is what they're supposed to do. This is what you do, not because they're scared that he's missing. So I do wonder if there was a choice made here. Let's listen in to Peter Hyatt on this. Oh, I'm on the Tony Mathis one. Let me switch back. Hold it real quick. We are going to go into Tony Mathis in just a second.
Again, I apologize for the change of start. I have this difficulty right now in my voice. So I'm not on Team Chris or Team Seth or Team Sebastian. I just like them found and to learn what happened.
Yeah, and I think this whole team thing that I'm seeing going on social media is, I think we just need to stop, because I think that no matter, I mean, we should just be worried about where Sebastian is. That's the big question. And I think that going back through I think the key to where Sebastian is does lie with his family, with his mom, with his stepdad, with his father. I think the keys to this do lie with the family.
There were some, I think, poor actors that got involved in searching, and there were some genuine people that gave of their heart to search, including private investigators who give of their time, and they have to carry the heartbreak into this.
I'm so glad that Peter Hyatt's talking about PI Chloe and PI Heather here, because you can see PI Chloe still is advocating for Sebastian. She is still looking for him. I just wanted to say that because I know people are like, oh, but there have been some genuine people on social media that really have gone above and beyond to try to find Sebastian. There have been people, you guys, that have done a lot of great help to try to find him.
When they're looking in the woods, for example, they're not looking for a boy that's hiding in some of those places after 2.5 months. And then they go back and see people trying to pummel their reputation on social media. That's rough. That's rough.
And that's why I kind of came out and advocated for Trev Time there. He's the one that did the interview, not to be confused with T-Rev. People have conflated the two. Trev Time is the one that did the interview with Nina. He was in early on. He's the one sitting up on this panel with Duchess. I think he was genuinely searching.
Here's a good question. Have you already discussed the abuse allegations by the grandmother? When, and I have a little bit, when the body speaks, I listen. So the first time, and this was early on, I heard about incontinence, I thought of sexual abuse. I didn't say it publicly here, it was early and that sort of thing. And then later on, I heard about allegations, and I thought they're likely to be true. His body's telling us something, especially as a boy. And then the machismo, the faux machismo of the stepfather with all his rants and rages. And I read on social media that he disguised his voice or something, and just crazy behavior. But it brought, I think, attention to this case.
So I agree with that. I do want to. So I agree with Peter Hyatt's and his assessment. I do want to share this information that Tony did. Let me just boost it. Let me know if it's not loud enough. Paid for interviews and stuff like that. But he was not at CrimeCon. So this whole thing that he was being at CrimeCon demanding payment for interviews, it's just simply not the case. So I just thought it would be worth, having Tony come out and tell you guys that he just didn't feel like this would be a good place to put it, because then people would say, why is he at CrimeCon getting publicity for himself instead of, actively out looking for Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers? So I think, I do think this was a good call. I do think this was, definitely the right call to make on this. Let me know what you think about all of this. Let's go ahead and do some questions, and then we're going to dig into this. Yeah, please give this a thumbs up, hit the like button, and a little bit more. Darren says, I don't trust Seth now either. Sam says, I agree. If Katie gets interviewed alone, she will spill everything. Well, she did do one interview alone. She did do one. Mike says they are 100% deceptive, in my opinion. Brother Mike says, now I'm going to miss the next live stream. I have to. Oh, that's okay, Mike. Yeah, I'm going to do Micah Miller right after this. If you, as soon as this is done, I'm going to close this one out, and then I'm going to reopen with Micah Miller. If you don't know that case, it's really, really good. And we're going to talk about Micah Miller, but I also want to talk about it in terms of you guys too. Deb Basil says she won't come for me. Thank you. Nana says, I think it was all a hoax. I've had some people talk about Balloon Boy. Do you remember the parents with Balloon Boy? I don't know. I don't know. And Jessa's problem is she's ex-military. They are taught how to be in interrogations. She's talking about Katie there. That's a good point, and Jazz. Lisa says they're both narcissists, only about themselves. Poor Sebastian, to have been living with them, his socially awkward ways would have, between autism and being raised with them, it's no wonder he didn't have any friends. Yeah, and I feel really badly that I just wondered, did he feel like he had anybody that he could turn to on this? Chrissy says, yes, she thinks that Katie needs to be interrogated without Chris Proudfoot hovering over her. Well, maybe they did that day. We have not seen the body cam footage, right? We haven't seen the body cam footage on this, you guys. So hopefully we will find out more. Hey, Truth. Truth says Seth was on camera at work at the jail and he passed a lie detector test. We know he took a lie detector test because Nancy Grace told us that he did. And we know that he was on camera at work because he works at a jail. Some people think he's a police officer. He's not. I think he does intake and outtake at the jail. So he works in law enforcement, but he's not a police officer. So I hope that kind of clears that up. A lot of people have had questions about that in the comment section too. I just want to clear up some of the stuff that I've been reading you guys on the comments. Autism GMA ×3 says, does he feel like he needs to defend her because he pushed her into making such a terrible choice? Great question. Mary Jury agrees. Carol Mary says there's no proof they were both on the line and could have been. There's no proof they were both on the line. Could have just been sitting somewhere. You're talking about Chris and Katie Proudfoot talking. Yeah, I think it's possible. I mean, I think you could, if he told us 3 hours plus minutes door to door. I think it'd be very possible to, put a call in. If you're Chris Proudfoot, leave it by the TV and drive yourself there, and after hearing what happened with Nina Gomez and how his family tried to intervene to get Faith away from Nina Gomez, if that is true, and I say if because I can't prove it, so allegedly, in my opinion, you know, it's definitely worth considering. Lily's Child says, no begging for a safe return. Yeah, I think that's been like red flags for statement analyst Peter Hyatt. Do they know and nobody else is involved or stopping him from coming home? Sam thinks they kept him from having friends. Darren says, let's hear it if they have nothing to hide. And Jess says it makes her wonder. Addis Perez says, I think that somebody snapped and took their punishment too far for a freak accident to happen. Both the Proudfoots are covering up and trying to make it appear that Sebastian disappeared, in my opinion. Very interesting. Jilly Lane says, they know my opinion that Sebastian won't be coming home. And that is Peter Hyatt's. He's really concerned that Sebastian's going to be found somewhere. And it sounded like P.I. Chloe was also really concerned that he was going to be found somewhere. So concerned that she didn't want Seth to find him. Carol Mary says there's no proof that Sebastian was even there in their house. Pictures, nothing, no video. And talking about pictures, the other thing that we're missing on this, you guys, tell me what you think about this, but I think it's very odd that we don't have any pictures of Chris Proudfoot with Sebastian past the point of where he's, little, like maybe 8, 9 years old. We don't have any pictures of Chris Proudfoot with Sebastian out doing things, bowling. Where are those photographs? Where are the pictures? Why is he calling Sebastian the young man instead of his name? Why is he calling Katie the mom instead of my wife or Katie? Why is he saying the house instead of our house, our home? Truth 911 says, in my opinion, the phones were just a digital alibi. No one was on the line. I don't know. A lot of people feel like you do, Truth. A lot of people are questioning everything because we've caught so many lies. Just even on, the Whopper today, we were all cleared. Nobody's been cleared. Law enforcement has told us that no one has been cleared. So, yeah. A one-way street, in my opinion, Sebastian got lost in this case. Well, we're trying to bring it back to him, but I do think that, I know for some people are like, well, I just want to only focus on the fact that Sebastian disappeared. Well, that's fine. But here on Reporter Room, I'm going to try to bring you guys all the information so you guys can make your own mind on what you think happened. I'm not telling you what to think or who to believe. I'm just going to bring you everything that I know about this, but I do think that the parents are relevant, and so do the statement analysts. You don't have to just take my opinion for it. You can take Steve Johnson's opinion for it when he appeared on the Interview Room. You can take Peter Hyatt's interview. These are two trained professionals who do statement analysis for a living. They train law enforcement in statement analysis. So you don't have to take my opinion on it. Consider taking the professional's opinion on it. They are seeing all kinds of red flags. So yeah, I think, I do want to bring it back to Sebastian, but I also think it's important to discuss Sebastian in the context of what was going on around him, right? And I'm just wondering if that February 26th date was significant to somebody. If this was foul play, was that February 26th date, which is the date of on the documents for Chris and Katie's divorce papers, was that significant to someone? Ennis Press says, imagine what Chris did to Sebastian after the CPS worker left the house. Yeah, and where was Katie on this? Did she advocate for Sebastian? So, you know what, my son would not tell a lie, and, Chris, you need to do better. It doesn't sound like it. It doesn't sound like it. It sounds like she sided with Chris Proudfoot. So Sebastian would have felt boxed in because even though his teacher called CPS, he still had no one, no friends, no one. So yeah, great point, Addis. Brother Mike says to Jill, I have that feeling. I hope I'm wrong. A lot of us have that feeling. Mike says Chris hasn't cried for the child or even said goodnight to him. No. We never, and he calls him the young man. It's not until later interviews after statement analysis analysts start coming out to talk about this, and all of a sudden we start hearing Sebastian being referred to as Chris's son. In the early interviews, he's that young man. He's him. but not anything about his being his son. That doesn't come out later. And Jess says Sebastian is intelligent despite his disabilities. I think so too. Autism GMA times 3 says she will be crying for a long time. Sam says, so Katie was pushing that Chris wasn't there from the beginning. Who are they giving the alibi? Yep, Chris, which means he is majorly involved. So again, this is just Sam's opinion. Just want to share that. But, a lot of people are concerned about, the way that this information has come out. A lot of people are concerned about this. What's really going on here? Carol Mary says, I don't really understand how he's trying to get custody of Faith when something happened at the house. Right. And he was still trying to proceed on that. I don't understand how entitled you would feel to get custody of Faith when Nina Gomez has told us what she had to do to have Faith, that he withdrew his emotional and financial support. Now, we don't have to just take Nina Gomez's word for it. We can look at his behavior, in my opinion, with Katie Proudfoot. The fact that he wasn't home for the whole month of February, even though he was just a little over 3 hours away. Why wasn't he coming home on the weekends? Most men or women who work and are within driving distance come home on the weekends to be with their loved ones. They come home to be part of the family. But instead, he stayed at work. Why? Did he say to something similar to what he tried to say to Nina Gomez, where he told her, he wanted her, this is according to Nina, that he wanted her to end the pregnancy? Did he do something similar to Katie? Get rid of Sebastian or I go. Was there a choice? Thank you so much. This is our head mod, and thank you to all our mods today and all of our channel members and all of our subscribers. Pamela says, doesn't seem like she took up for Sebastian because no one, I agree. I can't imagine just standing by silently with the belt incident. To me, that would be, you're out of here, buddy. Sorry. You're gone. If CPS showed up at my door, I would be siding with, Sebastian, not Chris. And I don't hear any of that. Even in her own account of that night, she says Sebastian told her he loves her, he loves the puppies, but nothing about her loving him. We don't hear that. Allie says, I think they know exactly what happened. I think Sebastian isn't coming home. Unfortunately, I pray law enforcement is watching. Addis Press says, Chris seems to be celebrating that Sebastian is not in his home. I don't know if he's celebrating. I think he's worried. I think that's why he's going on all these shows. I think that's why he's trying to do reputation damage. I think he's really worried. That's my opinion. But I'm not disagreeing with your assessment. But I think, I do feel like, I do wonder, and in listening to the statement analysts, if Katie did make a choice. If you haven't seen my video, The Choice, go back and review that and let me know what you think. Nana says, I think they all know where Sebastian is. So you think it's like a balloon boy type of case, or this is a hoax? Pepper said, please hit the like button and support our girl, Jess. Thanks so much. Yeah, please give this a thumbs up. Help me out with the algorithm. It lets YouTube know that I'm doing a G-rated show here. A116 says, there's no way being married to Chris Proudfoot. In my opinion, he's controlling and a bully. Chris says Sebastian is a special, handsome young man. Yes, he is. Chrissy's saying we should all pray for him. Jill, thank you so much for the green heart for Sebastian. And she agrees with your assessment, autism GMA. Aunt Kimmy says Seth needs to pull his head out and get rid of Tony. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm not a fan of what's been going on, but I don't want to talk about that today because I've already discussed that in other videos. You guys can go through my live streams and videos if you want to learn more about that. But I do really want to stay focused on how this all affected Sebastian. How did Chris and Katie Proudfoot's life, this life that Sebastian had with just a couple of friends, supposedly, and Chris Proudfoot even says in that interview that these aren't real friends of Sebastian. These are like people he viewed as friends, which is like kind of an awful thing to say when you have somebody that's missing. It just makes me wonder if if he would have felt from Chris Proudfoot that he didn't have anybody, that he's being told, nobody believes you. Nobody's going to believe you. Tony says they should question them separately. Katie would forget the script. I don't know. Mary Jury says if they don't know more than us, then there may be corruption within the department. I don't think so. I think you would have to have the TBI. I don't know why they would be corrupt. You'd have to have the TBI. The Secret Service member did some investigating. The FBI is also helping out a little bit. But I know there have been rumors that Chris Proudfoot has somebody that works at the Sumner County Sheriff's Office. But I also think that even if you knew somebody that worked at the Sumner County Sheriff's Office, it doesn't mean all the sheriffs are going to just, side with Chris Proudfoot. So I think really what's going on here, this is just my opinion, but what I really think is going on here is they don't have Sebastian. They don't know for sure what happened to him. They can't charge the Proudfoots, and then Sebastian is found out to have run away because of something that they did or said, or if they, if Katie pushed him out the door that night. They need Sebastian. But I do think it was interesting when Chris said on one of the panels in the last couple of weeks that they were going to be studying this case for ages. To me, that doesn't sound like a stepfather of somebody that thinks they're going to be found, that they're going to be studying this case for the ages, is a very, very strange thing to say. So I don't know. I'm not discounting your feeling on that, Mary Jury. I'm not here to, you can feel that way about it. It's okay. But that's just my view on it. I just think it would be very hard to get all of the people that work. I just don't want to impugn all of the people at the Sumner County Sheriff's Office, even if they do know somebody. It doesn't mean that's going to compromise the investigation. And I definitely have a lot of faith in the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations. Jilly Lane says, I think Seth is having a nervous breakdown. Yeah, he could be. He could be. He could be. Susanna for Christ says, I would like to comment more, but got a serious sticky key issue. Oh, I'm so sorry. And you got your dog pinning you down. Allie says, Aunt Kimmy, yes, she agrees. Seth has become suspicious to me. I feel like he's protecting Katie. Are you talking about Seth? Seth is protecting Katie? Or are you talking about Chris? Because I don't feel like Seth is protecting Katie. I feel like Seth thinks that Katie may have done something. We know from the interview on Nancy Grace that Tony Mathis was so upset about that that Seth was, was asked by the polygrapher. He was asked, what does he think happened? And the polygrapher told Nancy Grace that he feels like that Seth said he felt like Katie, gave him too much sleeping medicine. So, Seth, feels like she did something to him. Addis says, I pray daily for Sebastian to be found. So many of you guys do. And I just love the outpouring and kindness that I've seen in all of this. I love your hearts. You guys have like the biggest hearts. Vivian says, will the dispatch video ever be shown? Yes, I think it will, but it's not until the case is like we have something like an indictment or something like that. They're not going to show it right now because it's still an open an active investigation. So law enforcement is going to protect that investigation. They're not going to release the dispatch audio if there is a dispatch audio, and they're not going of Chris Proudfoot and Katie Proudfoot on the three-way call, and they're not going to release the body cam footage of when they first arrived at the Proudfoot home. I really want to see what the story was that day compared to these interviews, right? I think that would be helpful. Carol Mary says, what happens if they never find him? I don't know. And Jess says, Seth may be a bit rough around the edges, but he is a grieving father. Mike says, remember the first interview? Chris refused to answer about the roadhouse, BJ's, etc. And then Lisa says, Peter Hyatt has a video with Seth. He doesn't really talk to Seth too much. He does ask Seth point blank if he did anything to Sebastian, and Seth says no. So but he did appear on Peter Hyatt's panel. It was just him and Peter together. It's definitely worth going over there and looking at his videos. Green hearts for Sebastian, y'all. Allie says, I think he's grieving, but he definitely is hiding something. You're talking about Seth? Mike agrees. Darren is, where is Sebastian? Leon says, Seth even takes Sebastian's mother's place away. That tells you a lot. He's bitter in the scariest way. After 8 years, he's saying what Katie did. Yeah, that's a Darvo tactic to make when the person that did the behaviors turns it around. And this is where I do really wonder, like this whole thing where they're talking about, the prophets are talking about, this kumbaya and how they all got along so great with Seth Rogers. I mean, we can now see in retrospect that this is not true at all. Andrea says, poor Sebastian, he was never taken care of properly and had many life changes. Recently divorced, stepdad moved, new school, new meds, new family. I'd run away too. Chrissy thinks the thud is a lie. Wow. Mike thinks he went home, went to bed. CB says, Seth was on camera at work, is a grieving dad. I would lose my mind too if I had to deal with Katie, who was last with Sebastian. Kathy Bowersox had something to do with Seth's disappearance. I don't know. This is just CB's opinion, and I just want to put that out there. And opinions are not facts. We're just all sharing our opinion here. So Truth 911 says, I think Seth just wants his son back and is trying to hold it together while going through the worst thing a person could go through. I'd be snapping at everyone, would have completely lost my mind. And Jazz thinks that the thud means something. She thinks that the thud means something. And Lori says, I can't even imagine how difficult this is. Well, guys, I'm going to be going into a live stream about the Micah Miller case. So I think I'm going to leave it here for today. Please drop me a comment below. Don't forget, we're doing the giveaway. All you have to do is be subscribed to Reporter Room and drop me a comment on the video. I have all the details posted in the comment section, and also under the giveaway video, I have all the details so you guys can know. Bear, hey, welcome. Seth is going through the stages of grief in real time. We are almost to acceptance now. So yeah, the stages of grief, for those of you that don't know, let me just pull that up really quick. That's a good point. Stages of grieving. Let's share this really quick. This is a Kubler-Ross, sorry. Oh, my I'm not being allowed to share this one. Okay, so let me go back, pick another one. My computer does not like that one, so I'm going to listen. Okay, stages of grief. Let's go to Healthline. That should be fine. All right, let me grab this one instead. Yeah, let's talk about that, because maybe this is, what we're seeing from Seth. I don't know. I don't want to be an apologist for Seth Rogers, but I do want to, and Katie could be going through these too. I don't know. But they're usually 5 to 7 stages. The 5 stages are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And then the 7 stages elaborate more on these, and they include feelings of guilt. Now, these don't go in that order. It can go in all kinds of different orders. But these are the Kubler-Ross 5 stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. So you don't have to go through these in this exact order. People can be angry first and then bargain, asking God to, if you do this, I'll do this, and then get angry and then feel depressed and then accept. It can go in any order, but it is a normal part of the grieving, and it might account for some of the behaviors that we're seeing. I'm not here to be an apologist for anybody. I just do want to just put that out there on not just Seth's behalf, but all of the parents' behalf. So let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section below. And we're going on over right now. I'm going to end this, and then I'm going to go over and start Micah Miller. So come on over with me because we have a lot to dig into. Give me 1 minute to get over there. So I'm going to end this, and then just give me 1 minute to get over there. But we're going to do that.